The night it all began. The rain felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. It pounded against the windows of my father's hospital room while I stood beside his bed with a pen in my shaking hand. I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing, that this signature was saving his life, saving my family, saving everything that mattered. But I still felt like I was stepping off a cliff with no ground beneath me. Vincent Moretti stood across the room, watching me with those dark eyes that never revealed a single thought. His suit was perfect. His posture was perfect. Even the way he breathed seemed controlled. He didn't look like a man who cared about anything, least of all the woman signing her freedom away to him. "You are just my wife on paper," he said. His voice was smooth with a strong Italian accent, but cold enough to make my heart squeeze tight. He said the words like they were a warning, not a promise. I signed anyway. The courthouse ceremony lasted 12 minutes. No vows, no rings, no smiles. Just my trembling signature beside his sharp, confident one. The judge didn't even look me in the eye. When it was done, Vincent walked out first, not even glancing back to see if I was following. I felt like a ghost drifting behind him, already fading from the world I knew. Later that night, a black car brought me to the Archer building, 60 floors up. A penthouse bigger than any dream I had ever let myself imagine. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt small, like I didn't belong in all that marble and glass and quiet. I stood in the foyer with my suitcase at my feet, afraid to take another step. I didn't know where my room was. I didn't know if I even had a room. Then he appeared at the end of the hallway. Vincent Moretti. Bare forearms, rolled sleeves, tie loosened, eyes sharp. He looked powerful in a way that made it hard to breathe. Scars marked his arms, faint but clear, reminders of a life that had nothing to do with mine. "The East Wing is yours," he said, pointing to the right. "My quarters are in the West Wing. Do not enter without permission." Quote. His eyes swept over me, not with desire, not with admiration, but like he was inspecting a piece of property he wasn't sure he wanted. "Breakfast is at 7. Appearances must be maintained, even in private." I forced my voice to work. "How long do you expect this arrangement to last?" Something flickered in his eyes. Maybe irritation, maybe amusement, or maybe nothing at all. "Until it no longer serves its purpose," he said, already looking away. "The master bedroom has been prepared for you. I sleep elsewhere." That was my dismissal, clean and final. I spent that first night lying in a bed meant for two but used by one. Rain lit up the room with flashes of lightning. I stared at the ceiling and tried to understand what my life had become. I didn't cry, even though I wanted to. Crying felt too small for the size of the loss inside me. Days turned into weeks. I learned how to move through the penthouse like a shadow. Breakfasts with Vincent were silent. He read newspapers I couldn't understand, his face hidden behind Italian headlines. I pushed food around my plate, too anxious to swallow. He came and went at strange hours. Sometimes he returned with bruises he didn't bother to hide. Sometimes I heard urgent phone calls late at night, always in Italian, always ending in sharp silence. I tried not to listen, but it was impossible not to notice the tension in his voice. The staff treated me with careful politeness, like I was the most fragile thing in the building. Only Maria, the housekeeper, ever met my eyes. For a second, I saw pity in them before she quickly looked away. I found my refuge in the library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books I wanted to sink into and disappear inside. I spent hours there, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Pretending I wasn't trapped inside a life I never asked for. Vincent rarely came near me, but I always knew when he was home. His presence filled the air like a storm cloud, quiet and heavy. Even when he wasn't in the room, I could feel him somewhere close. One night, I found a book of Italian poetry on my nightstand. I hadn't put it there. When I asked Vincent at breakfast, he didn't look up from his espresso. "Your Italian is poor," he said. "Practice will benefit you." It wasn't a compliment, but it was the first personal thing he had said to me since our wedding. A week later, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, so I wandered the penthouse, following the faint sound of music. When I reached the music room, I froze. Vincent was sitting at the piano, his fingers moving over the keys with a softness I had never seen from him. Chopin. Played with aching tenderness. It felt like I had walked in on something private. Something real. Something that didn't belong to the cold man I thought I knew. A floorboard creaked under my foot. He stopped playing. Slowly he turned toward me. For a moment our eyes met without walls, without distance, without the cold mask he always wore. "Tomorrow," he said quietly. "There is an event. You will attend with me." The mask slid back into place. "Be ready at 8. Wear something appropriate." He walked past me without another word, but the energy in the room had shifted. I felt it. He felt it. Something had cracked open between us. Something neither of us understood yet. Something dangerous. The next evening, I stood in front of the floor-length mirror in the guest room that was supposed to be mine. My hands trembled as I smoothed the silk gown Maria had helped me choose. It was pale gold, soft against my skin, and nothing like the clothes I usually wore. I barely recognized myself. I looked like someone who belonged on Vincent Moretti's arm, someone confident and elegant. But inside, I felt like the same frightened girl who had signed her life away in a hospital room. When I stepped into the hallway, Vincent was already waiting. He wore a black suit that fit him like it was made for him alone. His hair was pushed back, his jaw clean and sharp. He looked powerful in a way that made the air around him feel warmer. His eyes moved over me once. Not cold this time, not dismissive. Slower, more controlled. As if he was fighting something he didn't want to show. "You look suitable," he said. It wasn't a compliment, but it wasn't an insult either. Still, my heart gave a strange twist. The gala was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, a place filled with wealth I could not even imagine. Men in tailored suits with hidden knives, women in diamonds that sparkled like frost. Everyone smiled, but none of the smiles were real. Vincent kept his hand on the small of my back the entire night. His touch was warm through the silk, steady, grounding, almost protective. It felt more intimate than anything we had ever shared, even though we barely spoke. "Smile," he murmured softly near my ear. "These people look for cracks. Do not give them any." His breath brushed my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. I turned my head slightly, accidentally meeting his eyes. For a moment his gaze softened, as if he saw the fear I tried to hide. We walked the room together. I played the part of the perfect wife. He played the part of the man who owned the world. But something felt off. Conversation stopped when we approached. Eyes lingered too long. The tension in Vincent's hand grew tighter each time he scanned the room. By midnight, I expected we'd return to the penthouse. Instead, he led me to the hotel rooftop. A helicopter waited there, blades slicing through the air. The wind whipped my hair into my face. "Change of plans," he said. His voice sounded different, harder, more urgent. "We leave the city tonight." Before I could ask why, he placed a headset on me and guided me inside the helicopter. His hand stayed on my arm the entire time, firm and steady, protective. As we lifted off, the city lights blurred into gold and white beneath us. Vincent sat across from me, speaking rapidly into a satellite phone in Italian. I only understood one word. Pericolo. Danger. My stomach sank. My hands tightened on the seat. We landed at a private airstrip with a jet waiting on the runway. Engines already running. No time for questions. Vincent kept me close as we boarded, his eyes constantly scanning the darkness. "Where are we going?" I asked once we were airborne. He looked at me, his jaw clenched. There was emotion there, buried deep but real. "Somewhere safe." He hesitated for a long moment. "Someone made a move against me tonight," he added. "Against us." The word "us" hung in the air like a spark. I tried to sleep, but the fear and the closeness of him made it impossible. When I finally drifted off, I woke to find him watching me from the seat beside mine, his expression unreadable in the dim cabin lights. He didn't look away. It was the first time he had ever looked at me like I was not a burden, not a duty, but something he didn't know how to let out of his sight. Dawn came as the plane descended toward a green island surrounded by blue water. It was beautiful, untouched, peaceful, the opposite of the world we had just fled. "This is my private estate," Vincent said as we entered the villa on the cliff. "Almost no one knows it exists, and now you do." I didn't know why that mattered, but it did. The villa was open and bright, with white stone and windows that let in the warm ocean air. A place built for quiet moments, not for fear. "We stay 1 week," Vincent said as the staff led me to my room. "No phones, no outside contact." Quote, "Complete isolation," I finished quietly. His eyes softened for a second. "You are safe here," he said, his voice gentler than I had ever heard it. The first day passed in uneasy silence. We shared meals at the long wooden table, trying not to stare at each other too long. I caught him watching me once, but he looked away quickly, as if he had no right to. On the second day, I found the infinity pool overlooking the ocean. The water was warm and calm. I floated on my back, eyes closed, letting the sun erase my thoughts. Then I felt him. I opened my eyes and saw Vincent standing at the edge of the pool, hands in his pockets, watching me. His expression was unreadable, but not cold. Something else. Something deeper. "You never mentioned you could swim," he said. I didn't think it mattered. For a moment, the corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. That night, everything changed again. A storm rolled in from the sea, fierce and sudden. Rain hammered the windows as lightning split the sky. The power went out, and the villa drowned in darkness, until Vincent brought candles to the living room where I sat, without the staff, without distractions, without distance. It felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of us. I asked the question that had lived deep inside me since the beginning. "Why did you marry me? You could have paid my father's debts without forcing me into this." He froze. His fingers tightened around his glass. "Marriage gave you my name," he said. "And my protection. It made you untouchable." A branch slammed against the terrace doors. I jumped. Without thinking, I reached for him, my hand brushing his arm. Warm, solid, real. He went still at my touch, his eyes finding mine in the candlelight. Something cracked open in that moment. Something neither of us knew how to stop, and neither of us wanted to. The storm grew louder through the night. Rain slammed against the windows with a force that shook the villa. Thunder rolled across the sky like an angry warning. I tried to sleep, but my mind replayed the way Vincent had looked at me in the candlelit living room, the way his guard had cracked for one fragile second, the way my hand had reached for him without thought or fear. I lay in bed listening to the wind when a sudden crash from downstairs jolted me upright. It sounded like glass breaking. My heart jumped to my throat. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy vase from the bedside table, and quietly stepped into the hallway. The villa groaned and creaked with the storm as I made my way downstairs. The candlelight flickered along the walls, throwing strange shadows across the floor. Every step felt louder than it should. When I reached the kitchen, I saw him. Vincent stood near the counter, a flashlight propped up beside him. Blood dripped steadily from his hand onto the broken remains of a glass on the floor. His shoulders were tense, his jaw set tight. He looked up when he heard me enter. For the first time since I'd met him, his face wasn't guarded. It wasn't cold. It was human, frustrated, tired, unmasked. "You're bleeding," I said, my voice soft but urgent. "It's nothing," he muttered, but the blood streaming down his palm said otherwise. I set down the vase and crossed the room to him before he could protest. The vase felt ridiculous now, a weak defense against whatever danger lived in Vincent's world. But right now, the only danger was the wound on his hand and the storm outside. "Sit," I said. He raised an eyebrow at my tone, but he sat anyway. That alone shocked me. I found the first aid kit beneath the sink and knelt in front of him. His hand was warm and heavy in mine as I cleaned the cut. He watched my face the entire time, his eyes darker than I had ever seen them. "You've done this before," he said quietly. "My father was a construction worker," I explained. Cuts and bruises were part of daily life. Vincent nodded slowly, like he was storing the small detail somewhere important. I wrapped the gauze around his hand with careful, practiced movements. My fingers brushed his skin as I secured the bandage. The air between us grew warm, tight, charged with something I didn't have the words for. Without warning, Vincent lifted his uninjured hand and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my cheek, tracing the line of my skin. "You continue to surprise me," he murmured. The sound of his voice so close to me sent a shiver through my entire body. His thumb brushed my cheekbone with a tenderness that didn't match the reputation of the man sitting in front of me. I didn't move away. My breath stilled as his eyes drifted to my lips. I leaned into his touch, and he kissed me. The kiss was soft at first, a question, a careful step into something neither of us had been ready to face. His lips were warm and gentle, not demanding, not controlling. It felt like he was tasting the truth he had been trying to deny since the day we met. When he deepened the kiss, something inside me broke open. My hands slid into his hair, pulling him closer. His grip on my waist tightened, steady and sure, as if he had been holding himself back for too long. When we pulled apart, breathless, Vincent rested his forehead against mine. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I told myself to keep my distance, but I can't do it anymore." I didn't respond with words. I kissed him again, answering the fear and truth in his voice with the only thing I could offer. The walls between us fell away. He lifted me into his arms and carried me through the darkened villa, the storm flashing outside as if the sky itself was reacting to us. Moonlight poured through the windows of his bedroom as he laid me gently on his bed. "From the moment I saw you in that hospital room, I knew," he whispered, his fingers brushing my jaw. Paper was never going to be enough. My heart twisted at his confession. All this time I had believed I was just a convenient choice, a contract, a shield. But he had seen me. He had wanted me before I even understood who he was. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. His gaze softened in a way I had never seen before. "Because wanting something makes it vulnerable," he said, "and I've never had anything I didn't expect to lose." Dawn crept slowly across the room. I woke in his arms, the warmth of him wrapped around me like the safest place I had ever known. His fingers traced lazy circles on my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. "I watched you for weeks at the hospital," he admitted quietly. "Your strength, your devotion, your fire." I couldn't look away. I turned to face him, my heart pounding at the honesty spilling from him. "But you acted like you didn't care," I whispered. "I acted like a man who didn't deserve you," he corrected. "But I was wrong." Before I could say anything, the satellite phone rang loudly on the nightstand. Vincent's entire body stiffened as he answered. His voice dropped, cold, sharp, controlled. The Vincent Moretti the world feared had returned. When he hung up, his face was stone. "Get dressed," he ordered. "Pack only what you need. We're leaving, now." The tenderness was still in his eyes, but it had been pushed aside by something darker. Fear, determination, and something that looked painfully like love. I rushed to my room as he barked orders into the phone, his voice low and urgent. I heard only one word clearly as he moved through the hallway. "Traitor." We were no longer hiding, we were running, together, and there was no turning back. The drive down the coastal road felt unreal, like the world had tilted under my feet. The morning sun lit the waves below us, but Vincent's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. His other hand rested on a gun in his lap, casual and natural, as if it belonged there. I realized then that danger wasn't visiting us. It lived with him, and now it lived with me too. "Someone betrayed our location," he said, as the tires hit a narrow dirt path hidden behind thick trees. "Only one person knew we were on that island, someone in my inner circle." The words hit me hard. If someone that close could betray him, then the threat was deeper than I understood. The path ended at a forgotten fishing village, weathered wood houses facing a hidden cove. A sleek speedboat waited at the edge of the shore. Vincent moved fast, lifting a loose floorboard in one of the shacks and pulling out a waterproof bag filled with passports, cash, and a small tracking device. "You have escape plans everywhere?" I asked quietly. His eyes met mine with something like regret. I learned early that survival is not luck. It is preparation. Before I could speak, an old fisherman stepped out from the trees. He nodded at Vincent, silent and serious. In this world, loyalty didn't need words. I watched Vincent unload supplies into the boat, shirt lifting just enough for me to see a long scar across his collarbone. Another mark from a life lived in shadows. "This isn't the first time someone has tried to kill you," I said softly. He paused, his jaw tightening. "No, but it's the first time it puts you at risk." The distant sound of engines echoed from the road, growing louder, closer. Vincent turned to me, his voice low. "They're almost here." He placed a metal object in my hand, a small pistol, heavy and cold. "Do you know how to use it?" Quote. "Yes," I said, remembering weekends at the shooting range with my father. Vincent looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "You really are full of surprises." A flash of respect lit his eyes, mixed with something warmer. Then the first shot rang out. We ducked behind the boat's cabin, as bullets ripped through wooden walls. Vincent moved with precision, firing back with a deadly calm that sent chills through me. He wasn't the businessman in a suit. He wasn't the cold husband reading newspapers. He was something far more dangerous. A masked man appeared to our left. My training kicked in. I aimed. Fired. The recoil jolted my wrists. The man fell. Vincent gave me a look I couldn't read, something between admiration and fear. "Stay behind me," he said. "If anything happens to me, take the boat and head east." "I'm not leaving you," I shot back. His shoulder brushed mine as we fired side by side. "You will if I tell you." But he didn't say it like an order. He said it like a plea. Above us, the thump of a helicopter grew louder. Help was close. But the attackers were closing in. "3 more minutes," he said. "We hold them for 3 more minutes." We moved together, instinctive and in sync. The world shrank to the sound of gunfire and Vincent's breath next to mine. When the helicopter finally roared overhead, rappel lines dropped toward the sand. "Go!" Vincent shouted. I grabbed a line but didn't climb. Not without him. A bullet grazed his arm, tearing through his shirt. Blood blossomed across the fabric, but he didn't flinch. He shoved me toward the helicopter, fury in his eyes. Not fury at me, fury that anyone dared hurt me. I fired at the man on the beach to cover him. He fought off one attacker in brutal hand-to-hand combat before sprinting toward the rope. The helicopter was already lifting. He leapt. I caught his arm, gripping with everything in me, helping pull him inside as bullets hit the sand below. When he finally collapsed inside the cabin, I threw my arms around him. "You should have gone when I told you," he said, breathless. "I'm not leaving without you." I whispered into his shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere." Something broke at him then, the last wall. He pulled me close, blood-soaked shirt and all. "I never saw you as just paper," he said against my hair. "From the beginning, you were the most real thing in my entire life." We flew to another island, where a doctor stitched the cut on his arm without asking questions. Later, in the safe house above a small restaurant, he struggled to stay awake while his phone buzzed endlessly with updates. I took the phone from his hand and set it aside. "Vincent, rest. Your empire won't fall tonight." He didn't argue. That alone told me how exhausted he was. When I tried to stand, he caught my wrist gently and pulled me down beside him. "Stay," he said softly. Not a command, a request. I lay beside him as his arm wrapped around me, steady and warm. "When this is over," he murmured, "we will change our arrangement. No more separate wings. No more pretending. No more paper marriage." "What do you want instead?" I whispered. His thumb brushed my cheek. "A real marriage," he said, "with you choosing me, not because of debt, not because of fear, because you want to." The next week was a blur of strategy and discovery. Together, we helped uncover the traitor, a man who believed Vincent had grown weak since marrying me. "Love makes you vulnerable," the traitor spat. Vincent looked him in the eye. Calm, clear, certain. "No," he said. "Love gives me something worth fighting for." His hand slipped into mine, a reason to win. We returned to the city a month later. not to the cold penthouse, but to a brownstone Vincent had bought for us. For a new beginning, on our first night there, he handed me a velvet box. Inside was a ring that sparkled like the ocean, where everything changed. "I want every part of me to belong to every part of you," he said as he slid it onto my finger. "No more walls, no more distance, no more pretending you are just my wife on paper." When he kissed me, it wasn't careful or unsure. It was a promise. A promise that this time we weren't running from something, we were running toward something. Together.